Hello, and welcome to Field Chats, Environmental Action Civics Essentials, brought to you by EarthForce. Today we're hosting our quarterly office hours, answering the questions that you've asked us. I'm Alyssa McConkey, Chief Program Officer at EarthForce, and I'm here with some of our program team, Taylor and Kristen, and we have Haley on the back in the production side, on the back
Hello.
end. Hey. How you guys doing today?
I am tired but cup full.
Oh, that's right. You just had some PTO.
I did. I had some time
That's
off and spent
cool.
it with some good friends, so I'm feeling good, but
Oh,
good
love it.
tired. Taylor, how
Yep.
about you?
Doing good. Yeah, coming off a busy weekend. Kiddo
Mm-hmm.
birthday parties and went up to Georgetown out here in Colorado. Rode the
That's
steam
right.
train up there in Georgetown. It was a
Cool.
really good time.
Are the colors happening yet?
Yeah, it's not peaking, but
Ooh,
they're there for sure. Very
cool.
gold. So yeah, the fall
Yeah.
colors probably this weekend will be the
Okay.
peak. It's my
Cool.
Mm.
Tom and I are heading out for fall color extravaganza next weekend starting. So I'm hoping there'll be some good colors then. So
yeah. Show you the next 2 to 3 weeks should be good.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a
cool.
pretty narrow window, but yeah, it was beautiful. It was a good time. But
Nice.
it's getting
Good.
cold. We've got some snow up there now.
I
Apparently, I think some mountain
know.
towns got some snow this past weekend. So,
Yeah. Well, happy fall. It's official.
yep.
All right, well, let's dive in. So, we asked you all for some questions, plus we've been doing this for a minute and we know what y'all ask about a lot. So we went ahead and added a few of the questions that we hear often too. But I think Taylor's going to start us off with a question about how old young people need to be to do this. Do you want to share that, Taylor?
Yeah. So the question is, can I do environmental action civics with younger or older kids? And how does it look different? And I would say that the materials are written at kind of this middle school level, but can be adapted to any age range. And I think when you engage in EAC with younger students, it really just requires a bit more planning and facilitation effort. Maintaining those key focus areas by moving along the process and focusing on kind of like the local issue and defining your community. If it's a younger school or elementary school age students, like focusing on just that area. It's like their world versus maybe going beyond to the city or even state level. And as long as you're maintaining that student voice and choice, can really be helpful. So just kind of that shared decision making, that youth adult partnership element. And then when you get to that part of the strategy selection, it's like how we do it is all of that I mentioned earlier, but then the what. So, like, what are we going to do with our students? I think a simple strategy is an ask for change. So, as you go through the process, you're gathering information, you're learning about it. And as long as you can just kind of maybe have some sort of ask, having those students, young or old, engage with those decision makers and ask for a change. We notice this. This is the research that we did, and this is what we'd like to see changed. And a lot of that can also be rooted in lived experience as well. I think, like, especially a younger student, they know what their lives are like, and so they know
Mm-hmm.
what they would like to see different. So those are some really good pieces, and maintaining that engagement throughout the process, working with those community members and organizations that are already engaged in the issue that they select, can also be a really easy way to maybe tap into an existing community strategy, especially if it's younger students. Like, well, we don't necessarily want to create something new. So, like, all right, then we're going to get this, third or fourth grade class or even younger engaged in this existing strategy that the community is
Mm-hmm.
doing, is a really good way to kind of work in EAC with those students.
I love that. I would just add that, like, and I think we're going to talk about these key experiences here in just a minute, but like, it's young kids are never people are never too young to have some of these experiences, right? To start practicing decision making and reaching out, making those relationships with community partners, like you mentioned, Taylor. So that makes so much sense to me, and it's just like kind of scaffolding up or down some of like how that you talked about that they're going to address the issues, like what strategies make sense for a third grader versus a senior in high school, right? And just kind of adapting through that. But this is like an inquiry process that I think benefits all young people. So yeah, that's cool. Thank you. And Kristen, do you want to tell us about, like, I think this other question of what are the key experiences that young people need to have? Like, we have this process, we have steps, all this, but we've tried to kind of distill down to some key experiences. So tell us about what those key experiences are.
So that question is what are the three key experiences that youth should have when they go through an environmental action civics experience. And when we talk about those, we're talking about these three. The first one is that youth choose an issue that is local and that they care about, that's rooted in their lived experience. And that seems really self-evident when we talk about it, that if you're going to be working on something for a long time, it should be something close to home that you care about and that you'll have a lot of enthusiasm behind it because it is part of young folks' lived experience. And we can really see that come out in the projects that are really close to home for young people, that the, you know, the stoke is really high on those projects. Second, key experience is that young people are co-creating their learning environment. And to break that down a little bit, that is where all of those youth voice and youth voice and engagement pieces are nestled in under that experience. And those are things like that young people are sharing in decision making, learning about how to make a decision democratically together for whatever age range they are in whatever kind of developmentally appropriate way that that looks, and that those young people are sharing in the responsibilities of a project or a decision. They're taking part in planning and delegation and all of those sort of logistic pieces that go into something like that, that young people are at the forefront and having choice in leading many of those processes. And last key experience is that ask for a change is happening somewhere in an environmental action civics process, and that young people are talking to their local decision makers, getting in front of them and sharing with them and finishing out with that ask for change. And that's that civic engagement piece.
Well
So
said.
the many ways that an environmental action civics experience can look so many different ways, but as long as you hit those three experiences, you'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, love that. Thank you. You did a great job of of sharing those, so thanks so much. And then we had another question from our community of practice, the EAC Alliance, that was, what can I do on a short timeline? Which is something we hear a lot. I have, so one of our partners is CAPE. I can't actually tell you what CAPE stands for. If somebody had that in the chat, I'd be like, hey, tell me more. But CAPE has taken the Earth Force process and broken it down into basically 8 distinct 1-hour sessions. And they do a pretty good job about keeping those key experiences, especially the ask for change. But I think any less time than that to get through the full experience is really pushing it. A little bit tight. And so we like to say 8 or more hours at least. Preferably even a lot more than that, so that young people can dig into those like issues in their community and really deeply understand those, that they can really create their ask for change meaningfully, that they do a lot of good research, like all of those kind of things. But you can incorporate the 3 experiences with any length of time. Like you could just be like, I only have students for even just like 1 hour. How can I include more voice and choice? How could I really make this a youth adult partnership? Like we recognize that we have to like scaffold some of these things. And Kristen, I think that's like a question you get a lot with a lot of our organizational partners too. And so
Mhm.
you had something to add to that.
Yeah, so often, a lot of our kind of non-formal out of school time folks that come to us are working in a camp setting or an after school setting. Yeah, where yeah, they see their students for like 1 hour every couple weeks kind of situation. And in those sorts of cases, I like to distill the Earth Force process and environmental action civics and even those three key experiences into a incorporate the things that you can. And at the end of the day, it is going to be additive to your students' life. So even if you can only focus on, democratic decision making, and if you can get through that and get that out the door, that is a net good. Or if you can just get to that ask for change, that is also a net good. So kind of pick what you can, and it's about the process you make along the way, about the skills that you make along the way.
Yeah, and I would agree. Yeah, that. But
Mhm.
if you're in a short timeline, focusing on the process elements and the skill building, and because that's really where the magic happens, not really so much concerned about the what you do at the end of the
Right.
process. Um, but in Colorado in the Rise Challenge, I have similar restraints with time, And with the challenge, they do need to produce a story of action where I do focus more on how they did what they did than what they did. But essentially, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about facilitating and planning and maybe leading them on a certain way. So I work a lot with classroom teachers. So either it's a state standard or a unit can associate it with that topic, which then it kind of narrows that scope as you go through the process. Like, oh, we're going to be selecting issues on community resilience against natural hazards. Oh, what's the hazard that's most impacting our community? And those inquiry questions kind of help it move along quickly, and you know what information you need to kind of get from step one to 6. And so that's really impactful, as well as place too. So a lot of times, what I mentioned earlier, keeping that defined community smaller, because I mean, we've had groups that address statewide issues, and that takes a lot more time versus maybe something within the school, and you can identify your community partners quicker, and you can get engaged a little bit faster and kind of identify what you need as you move along. So those are some really good ways of kind of shortening it, keeping that topic, keeping that place a little narrow.
Yeah, those are great. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that is really helpful for folks. And additionally, there might be some things that like in between, like key points in the process, like for example, in the decision-making spaces, is there a way that maybe you could do that offline? So young people are maybe not with you, but like asynchronously, there's some really cool tools out now. We love dot storming. That's like a way for folks to like go on virtually and vote on things. And so, maybe there's a form or a way to vote or something that could help young people to move the process along, but it's not like during time that you're in person. So that can help save some time too. Yeah, and then the final question we wanted to bring up is a version of a question we hear a lot, which is, does environmental action civics promote a partisan agenda? And the short answer is certainly no. It's really about ensuring that all students have a basic understanding of like the positive and productive ways to be involved in civic life. And so environmental civics teachers and anyone doing this work, we're not telling students what to think, but rather how to gather reliable information and really consider it with a critical lens and then formulate their own conclusions. So like looking at data about their community and then breaking that apart using that critical lens and then say, what do you think we should do about it? And talking to partners, what are other people doing about it? And really then it's the students that choose the issues and the strategies that they're passionate about. And I think what I've seen is that when you can really follow that process, that it takes some of the weight off of the educators feeling like, oh, you made my young person choose this or that. And it's like, nope, they actually did. And you can talk to them about how they got there because it was, their process and their understanding and discovery. So, really it's not about anything red or blue. It's really about helping like young people looking at their local community and saying, based on my lived experience, this is what I want to see different, working with peers and community members to change that. There's really nothing partisan about that. So hopefully that answers some of your questions today. I think that's it, guys. Did you have anything else to add?
Oh, just highlighting that engagement for that last piece, that like you are gathering the perspectives and ideas and even values of your community to develop your strategy so that it's holistic, versus just kind of determining that. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
And so many of our aspects of our work always come back to that idea of process over product. It's not the what, it's the how. And even in like the brainstorming for this episode, we were thinking of like, okay, we're just gotten so many more ideas here. So stay tuned. We've got many, many more fun podcast ideas in the hopper for you. So thanks so much for tuning in today, everyone. We will link any of the resources that we mentioned, such as CAPE, into the show notes for you. And as always, let us know what you think at earthforce.org/podcast. Don't forget to rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Oh, and community action projects for the environment, CAPE. Shout out to our friends, CAPE.
There it is. Thanks, Kate.
See ya. Bye.